9. In this age of social media, the spotlight is increasingly falling upon the mental health of children and young people. We've heard concerns recently how some digital companies do treat younger users. And let's not forget how the pandemic has affected schools and interrupted education over the last 18 months. Let's welcome Leonora Langley, the author of a new book, Let the Souls of Our Children Sing. In it, as a former teacher, she argues it's time to reconsider how best we educate our children. Good morning to you, Leonora.
Good morning. Lovely to meet you all.
It's nice to talk with you. Why did you decide to write this book?
Ever since I was a very young girl, I had a feeling that I wanted to write something like this because I felt children weren't always being listened to or even had a voice. So I felt really young that I wanted to give them a voice. When I was a student teacher in my 20s and I faced a class of 6 and 7-year-olds, they seemed so vulnerable, impressionable, but above all, I felt they were almost at the mercy of their parents and teachers, and I was witnessing what I felt was a lot of injustice. But it wasn't until later, when I became a parent and a counsellor and worked at the rock face of some very challenging schools, especially in Brighton, as a teacher, that I felt more qualified to write this book. And even at the beginning of the book, I put, this is the book that I would like to have been given to accompany the birth of my son. So I wanted to make it available to parents, educators and carers of the young. So I thought I'd better write it myself.
You argue very eloquently that education has changed. It's shifted away perhaps from its emphasis on arts and creativity and is perhaps a little more formulaic.
Yes, I feel that really, Matthew, since the 1870s, our education system has barely moved away from sort of a Victorian ethic of a 19th century model of too much emphasis on cognition and logic, because it can be counted and measured over the emotional development of our children and their nurturing their souls, which I think is beyond measure. And this is what I'm writing about, really, because for the past 150 years, we've had two main aims of education. There's the transmission of a body of knowledge and cultural values from one generation to another. And of course, we have to create a productive workforce. But I think education needs to be about the development of self-actualization and a true sense of self-belief, self-compassion and self-awareness in our children, which I think is mostly attained through creativity, through the arts, a much better balance between the sciences and the arts. It's a bit ill-balanced at the moment. There's too much emphasis on the intellectual, and we need to embrace children as fully integrated, where we look at their physical, intellectual, social, spiritual, and emotional. So at the moment, I think it's too prescriptive, sedentary, and almost soul-destroying, not just for the children, but also for the teachers who have to deliver it.
Post-war scholars have told us that we're in the helping mode of child rearing. So for me, it makes sense that we give our children more emotional support. I feel that we've gone from a culture which is relationship rich and information poor to a culture which is information rich and relationship poor. And I don't feel, as a teacher with over 30 years experience, that children actually remember information, facts and figures studied in specific lessons. What stays with them are the relationships they form. They remember the teachers who were positive, relating, loving and connecting.
But children have had to deal with lots of uncertainty over the last year and a half because of the pandemic. Do you see this then perhaps as a turning point, a watershed moment, for want of a better word, where we look at education and look at the way that we care for our children, because they've got so much going on in their minds at the moment?
They have indeed, absolutely. I think post-pandemic particularly, we desperately need a new paradigm where teachers and parents need to help their children to develop almost radical self-love and self-compassion. I think they've been through so much fear in the last couple of years that we really do need to attend to this side of them. At the moment, I think that we are witnessing a growing number of children without access to their true emotions and authentic selves, fully embodied and capable of reaching their full potential. And teachers need to be almost like emotional anchors wherever possible. Otherwise, they can feel rudderless. That's how I feel about it.
So do you feel then that the odds are stacked against some of our young people today, and in this age of social media where they're under so much peer pressure and the need to conform perhaps, or to belong, that, their mental well-being and their physical well-being could both suffer?
Absolutely right. With the current addiction to social media and computers, we're placing too much emphasis on children's external validation instead of their internal. They're being hyperstimulated, basically, which puts them into the sympathetic fight or flight mode, which I think leads to the overproduction of cortisol, which causes anxiety, depression, and stress. Children need more opportunities to be in the parasympathetic mode through greater emphasis, as I said, on the arts, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, nature walks, convening with nature, being out in the forest bathing. And especially up until the age of 7, I don't really think that formal education should start, as it doesn't in Scandinavia, until 7. I fully understand that children need stimulation. They need to be with their peers earlier than that. But I think it should be done through creative activities and creative play.
Leonora, good to talk with you. Thank you very much indeed for giving us an insight into your feelings. Let the Souls of Our Children Sing is the book. It's published in paperback at $8.99. It's available from Amazon, Waterstones and Austin Macaulay. It's also available as an ebook for £3.50. Leonora Langley, thank you for joining us here in the Channel Islands. Let the Souls of Our Children Sing.